Hi guys, and welcome to the exercises for Lesson 1. Now that we know the alphabet, it's time to practice saying some Greek words. You'll notice that we didn't go over the rules for dividing syllables, but they're listed on pages 8 and 9 of your Alpha to Omega textbook. For now, though, I'd like to focus on pronunciation. For our exercise videos, I'll do a few of the exercises with you and leave you to finish on your own. If you want to hear all the words in these exercises pronounced out loud, though, check out the courseware videos on the textbook website. One thing we should note before we begin. You'll see some diacritical marks, or accent marks, on these words, which we haven't talked about yet. For now, whenever you see an accent that looks like this, or this, over one of the letters in one of the Greek words, just put your natural emphasis on that syllable, and we'll talk more about what these accent marks mean in Lesson 2. Okay, so first, let's try pronouncing this word. I'll give you a few seconds now to pause the video and work it out, and then I'll come back and say it with you. Remember to think about which sound each letter makes, and to put the word stress on the syllable with the circumflex. And say it out loud. Are you ready? Okay. Poseidon. Now say it with me. Poseidon. Poseidon. Remember, pi makes a p sound. Omicron is a short o, ah. Sigma makes a s sound. Next we have this diphthong, epsilon iota, which makes an a sound, as in 8. Delta is a d sound. Omega is a long o. And this is nu, not a v, so it makes an n. So we put it all together, and we get Poseidon. Poseidon. Now let's try to transliterate it, that is, write it in the Roman alphabet that we're more familiar with from English. Well, pi gives us a letter P to make that p sound. And let's capitalize it, since the pi was capitalized up here. Omicron is an O, and we don't write a macron over it. Sigma becomes S. Epsilon and iota become E and I. Delta becomes a D. Omega becomes a long O, and we can put a macron over it here, even though we don't usually in English, to show that it's long. And nu becomes N. And so it turns out we have Poseidon, which you may recognize as the name of a Greek god. Let's try another one. Again, I'll give you a few seconds to pause the video and work it out. Alright, in this one we have our alpha for an A sound, and that's a smooth breathing mark, so no H before it. And then we have that PH for phi, so we can pronounce that as an F, so we have AF. Our O is an R, and remember it's not at the beginning of a word, so we don't have to put an H sound in. And Omicron again is a short O sound, that gives us Afra. Delta is still a D sound. That iota is long. You can see it that way in your book, but in Windows there's no way to type a macron and an accent over an iota. And the tau, of course, is a T sound, and eta is a long E, so we get Aphrodite. Aphrodite. Now try transliterating it. We'll use A for alpha, and again we'll capitalize it because the alpha was capitalized. P and H together for phi, so both of these represent the phi. R for rho, O for omicron, and with no macron again. D for delta, I for iota, and we can put a macron over it, so show that it's long. T for tau, and a long E for eta. And sure enough, we have Aphrodite, and it's the name of another Greek goddess. Okay, let's do one more. Again, if you'd like, pause the video so you can work it out. Okay, this one's a little trickier. It starts with an eta, but even before that, look what we've got, a rough breathing. And that means we need to say an H sound. Next we get that long E or A sound. So our first syllable, just encompassed in that first letter here, is going to sound like hey. Next we have a phi, which again was originally an aspirated P, but now we say just like F, like in English PH. So we have hafe. Next we have an alpha, but if you look carefully, it's part of a diphthong. So remember our alpha iota gets pronounced as I. So now so far we've got hephi, then sigma, which makes an S sound, tau, which again remember makes a T sound, omicron, which makes a short O, and another sigma for an S. Remember, this is that special sigma we get at the end of a word. And if we put it all together, we have hephaistos. And now let's transliterate. And we'll get an H to represent our rough breathing. Now this is a little bit confusing. Remember, this H does not correspond to that eta, but rather corresponds to this rough breathing. So the eta is going to give us what? A long E. So hey, phi becomes a PH, alpha iota becomes a I, sigma is S, tau is a T, omicron is an O, and another sigma for an S. And we get Hephaistos. And that's the name of another Greek god. Now you may have seen this name spelled like this and pronounced Hephaestus. And that's because this is the way that the Romans transliterated it into Latin. And the name Hephaestus comes to English through Latin. They had slightly different rules for transliterating Greek than we do. Okay, now I think you're ready to try the rest on your own. If you get stuck, you can listen to the words being pronounced out loud on that Hackett screen cap tutorial. You should finish the exercises in your book and try some of their exercises before taking the quiz for Lesson 1. Good luck, and I'll see you again in Lesson 2, where we'll talk about those accent marks.